Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we're talking about Disney Lorcana. This is designed by Ryan Miller and Steve Warner, and it is published by Ravensburger. Specifically, we're talking about the first chapter.
That's right. It's all we have available to us right now.
Yeah.
And also, I want to say a thank you to Disney for providing us with some of these cards that we were able to use to show you guys how this game works. So this is a TCG, a tradable card game. Some people call them CCGs, collectible card games. But essentially what's happening is you're going to be able to get all these different cards. You're making your own deck, and you're going to go battle against other people trying to see who can get the most amount of lore, which is kind of like the victory point in the win condition in this game. All right, so I have a lot of experience playing various TCGs or CCGs over the past 20, 30 years. I've played a number of them, and some of them I got kind of competitive with and got really deep into. So I feel like I've got a good, deep base knowledge of a wide variety of these TCGs.
Yeah, I, on the other hand, have played none of them. Intentionally. I didn't want to. I'm not interested. I don't really care about all of these games where you have to buy cards and keep buying the cards. In fact, do you remember that one year? Do you remember that one year at Gen Con?
I don't think they remember, but I do remember.
Okay, so there's this one year at Gen Con where they were just handing out magic packs like candy. Like, just, you get a magic pack, you get a magic pack, you get a magic pack.
The first one's free.
And so maybe it was drugs and not candy, but and I remember Ryan was like, you should go get one so we can play together. And I was like, no, not interested. And a couple of years ago, he started teaching our daughter Pokemon so he could relive his childhood through our daughter, because that's what all parents do. And he was like, hey, I could teach you so you could play. And I was like, what'd I say? Tell him what I said. What'd I say?
Nope.
Nope.
Not interested.
Not interested. So I am coming from this from the perspective of somebody who has never played nor shown interest in these type of games.
So, it's going to be kind of a fun discussion after that. Let me give you guys a quick overview of how to play the game. Obviously, as a CCG or as a TCG, there's kind of a lot going on, so I'm not going to give you the full rules explanation, every detail. But let me just give you a quick overview, give you the sense of how the game works. So the first thing you need in order to play Lorcana is a deck. Now, you can buy your own decks that already come pre-constructed, and those are going to be kind of a pre-built-in strategy that kind of teaches you how to play the game. However, after that, once you're a little more comfortable, you can make your own decks. There are 3 rules. So first of all, the first rule is you need to have at least 60 cards in your deck. I would say most of the time you're going to want to have just 60 cards. The reason is there's going to be certain cards in that deck that are, paramount to getting out to making your strategy work. And if you have the more cards you have, the harder it's going to be to get that exact card drawn. So I would say most of the time you're going to want just 60 cards in your deck. But the rule is at least 60. The next thing is you're going to want to have 1 or 2 colors of what they call ink. All right, so there is 6 different colors in this game. Other games you can combine any cards you want. This has a little bit of a restriction. You can only have either 1 or 2 colors of ink while you're building your decks. And the third restriction is you're only allowed to have 4 copies at maximum of any individual card. Now, there are some cards that are like, Aurora, Briar Rose, or Aurora, whatever it is. And you can have as many of those different kind of cards as you want. But as far as the exact Aurora, Briar Rose, you can only have 4 copies of those in your deck. All right, once you've constructed your deck, you are ready to play. Another thing to consider while you are building your deck is you want to have the majority of your cards be what they call inkable. So there's this little kind of ring around the top cards of your deck at the top left. If they have that golden ring, that means they can be turned into the resource ink, which is the cost of what to play different cards. If it does not have that ring and it's just a plain hexagon instead, that card is not inkable and therefore cannot be used as a resource. And that's fine, but you want to have most of the time, most of your cards be inkable. One last thing to consider when you're building your deck is you want to have kind of an arc to the cost of your cards. You want to have a few of the cheaper cost cards, a little bit more of the medium cost cards, and then you want to have kind of very few of the expensive, hard to get out cards, because it's going to take you a while to get there. If you build an entire deck full of just really expensive cards, the first half of the game is just going to be your opponent being able to get things out there while you're still waiting to build up enough ink to get those expensive cards out there. Alright, so now we've got our deck built, and we are ready to duel against another player. We also have these little tokens over there. Those come with the starter decks, and they're basically a good way to mark how much damage one of your characters has taken. You're also going to need a way to count your lore. So lore is kind of the win condition of this game. You're trying to get 20 lore. The first player to get 20 lore is going to be declared the winner. there's a pretty great assistant companion app that basically allows you to either keep track of just your lore or you and your opponents. Otherwise, just cool little dials like this to give you a chance to kind of change your roll and change your lore with something like that. Otherwise, if you're familiar with like maybe Magic the Gathering, any of those counters or a dice would work as well. So we're not going to play a full game, obviously, but just let me show you what this might look like. Whoever's turn it is, the very first turn, you do not get a chance to draw a card. So let's say we're going first. Here's our hand. What we're going to do is we're going to take one of these cards that is inkable, that has that kind of that ring around the top left corner. We're going to put it face down at the bottom. That is showing that is our ink. And then we can spend our ink. We're going to spend our ink by turning it sideways, and we can play one ink to play for our one ink character. We've got Olaf out there. He's ready to go. All right, so the idea behind Lorcana is we are drawing these characters almost. So you can't really do anything with them on the first turn they are played because the ink is still drying on them. There is some special keywords as you go on that might break that. So for instance, Rush. Rush allows you to kind of still attack other characters while the ink is still drying. But most of the time, once the turn you play a card, you cannot do anything about it. And just so we have some other stuff to go against, I'm going to take a card over here and just say they were able to play Flounder. So Flounder has a little bit of attack, a little bit of defense. All right, so now it's back to our turn. Now from here on out, both players are going to be able to draw a card on your turn. All right, so here's an example of one of those cards that does not have a ring around. It's just that plain hex. So this card is not inkable. All right, so what we could do now is we could choose, all of our cards are, by the way, going to become straight up again. We can play another card that's inkable. Now we've got 2 ink. Oh boy, it's getting bad. All right, so now we can play up to 2 cost cards. We can play either 2 1s or a 2. In this case, let's go ahead and play Pascal for 1. Now remember, his ink is still drying, so he cannot do anything at this point. But now let's do a little bit of attacking. Olaf has 2 choices, basically. He can either go on a quest, which is how you obtain lore, or he can attack other players. Now the thing is, in order to attack other players, they need to be exhausted. They need to be turned sideways, or exerted. In this case, our opponent does not have any exerted characters, so his either choice is to do nothing, or to go on a quest. Let's go ahead and go on a quest. On the side of the cards here, there's a little diamond, and that tells you how much lore you are going to get when you go on a quest. So by going on a quest, we're going to move up our dial 1. But now, by going on a quest, we've left ourselves vulnerable. We are exerted. So now, Flounder over there on the other team is going to have a chance to attack us. So let's take a look at what that looks like. All right, so he's going to exert himself. He has a stat of 2-2. Now 2 is your attack, and then the next number is your defense. So in his case, he has 2 attack, 2 defense. Olaf, who he's doing attacking has 1 attack and 3 defense. So it kind of goes back and forth both ways. Even when you're the defender, your attack still happens. So Flounder's going to do 2 attacks to Olaf. We're going to use our little markers here. Put 1, 2. Now remember, Olaf has 3 health, so Olaf is not knocked out yet. And similarly, Olaf has 1 attack. It's going to go backwards to Flounder. But Flounder has 2 defense, so neither one of them are knocked out at this point. You might have a situation when you do an attack, both characters get knocked out, and that's fine. But at the beginning of our next turn, everything is going to turn right side up again, and we're going to draw our card. Now there's a couple other kinds of cards I want to talk about. Primarily, we've been talking about turning cards into ink, and then our characters. There's also items. Items, you pay for them the same way. This card says Scimitar is going to take 2 of our ink. And this item is going to stay out there for the rest of the game until a card tells us to get rid of it. This particular one allows us to exert it in order to add attack value to one of our characters, which is pretty strong. So items stay out there basically for as long as the game lasts, unless a card gets rid of them. However, we also have actions. Some actions are like this one. You simply do it, and you pay for the cost at the top left, and do whatever it says. It goes in your discard pile. Stampede is similar. It's a little bit cheaper, but it cannot be turned into ink. This one's going to also allow extra damage to be dealt to your opponents, which is kind of a nice way to get around the fact of whether they're exerted or not, and maybe also finish off a character that you've already previously damaged. The last kind of card I want to talk about is called a song. It's also a version of an action, however, there's special rules about it. So for instance, you can just pay the cost on the top left as normal, use like a normal action, and do whatever it says. However, if you have a card that's expensive enough, So let's say we have Hans out here as an actual character. This particular card says, a character with a cost of 3 or more can sing this song for free, meaning you do not have to spend any of the ink on it. So Hans, instead of actually attacking or questing, could exert himself in order to sing this song and do whatever it says. So that's the gist of it. You want to get your characters out there as fast as possible so they can be defending other characters and getting lore. You're going to use your items to support you permanently. You're going to use your actions to support you temporarily, but they're usually very strong. And you're trying to gain lore. Lore is really at the heart of it. You're trying to get 20 lore before your opponent can get to 20 lore. There's a ton of different ways that you can build your decks, a lot of different strategies that you can try out. So have a lot of fun building your decks and trying to figure out how you can get the lore the fastest.
When I was a mom for the first time, I had an issue with IPs in picture books. I did not like them. There's so many great artists out there. There's so many great stories out there that I didn't like to go back to, like, all those cartoon stuff. It annoyed me. But I come to find out, and I'm sure a lot of you who are parents know this, that the children really like those. They really like having characters that they're familiar with. And in fact, not even that they like having characters that they're familiar with, but because of that, they actually engage and they can learn to read quicker because of that, because it is somebody that they're already familiar with.
I know, like, for me, like when I was learning piano, like if there's ever like a Christmas song or like a Star Wars piano book, I was always going to practice those harder than I was going to practice the ones that were just like
totally true. And so that is, I think, one of the things that endeared me towards this game was that even though all the cards and the gameplay for me is brand new, I'm already familiar with the characters, so it's not 100% new. I'm already familiar with it, and then the stuff that the characters do, the actions they have, makes sense with the storylines that I'm familiar with. So even though it's brand new, because it has the people I know, it's not 100% new. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, and because for me, when I'm playing some of these other card games, I don't really care much about the character. I'm more interested in what its effect is. Yeah. And so I see there's some cards that I don't even bother learning their names or anything, because I just know what their effects is, and it's not what I want to put in my deck, so I don't care about it. It's gone. Whereas with this, it was a lot of fun just kind of flipping through all these cards and actually just like reading all the little flavor text, seeing what the characters were, what different iteration of Mickey is this, what different iteration of Donald Duck is this. And then furthermore, like, I'm not much of a collector when it comes to these kinds of games. It can get a little pricey, but also because
it can get a lot of pricey. A lot of pricey.
I'm more interested in the gameplay primarily. This one was fun for me because I'm kind of experiencing this with my whole family, and this time I want the gameplay and I'm playing the gameplay, but also I'm starting to see the collector side of the appeal of the collector side a little bit. Like I want to have, this version of Belle and that version of Belle and that version of Belle. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if I had the alternative art for this version of Belle? Like, yeah. It's a new kind of an approach for me for this.
But one of the things that I really liked specifically about this is that it's brand new. So, like, one of the things that I like about board games, and one of the reasons why it's easy for me to get into board games, is because since there's so many board games being released, nobody's really an expert. So when I'm learning these games, we're all learning these games together. We're all starting on the ground floor. Now, obviously, I know somebody in the comments can be like, my favorite game's 15 years old, or that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the hobby as a whole. We're always learning and playing new stuff, so we're always learning that together. We're always growing together in that. And so this is finally a card game like this where I can do that. I can enter on the ground floor. Nobody knows what's going on. We can grow in this together. I can start where you're starting. I can be brand new, but you're brand new too. So it's totally fine. I can grow and I can learn at the same level. I'm not going to be playing against somebody who's like this savant who's been playing this game for 10, 15 years and knows all the ins and outs and knows why that card works with this card, because I'm going to be discovering that as you're discovering this.
At the same time, there is a lot of parallels that you can draw from some of these other TCGs and pull them into Lorcana. So, for instance, there's in Magic, you have this idea when you first play a creature, for the first turn that it's out there, it has what's called summoning sickness, so it can't do its benefits until the next turn, its second turn that's out there, unless it has an ability called haste, and then it can. Similarly, in this game, it's kind of all about the Disney art, that kind of thing. So when you put a character out there, you're essentially you're drawing it, I guess. And so the very first turn you're playing it, it has the ink is still drying, is the way they word it. So you can't use it until its second turn that it's out there, unless it has an ability called Rush, which acts similar to Haste, where then you can use it that same turn that you put it out there. So there's all these kind of little parallels and little kind of hidden Easter egg kind of things that are going to be familiar to people who have played a couple of these kinds of games. But that being said, it's in all new ways, all new iterations. Like you said, nobody knows what combos work well with what combos yet.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's going to be people who put all that together at some point, but I'll talk about that a little later.
Okay, another thing about this game is part of the rules is that there's all these different colors and you can only combine 2 of them to make your deck. And I know, like Ryan said, there's going to be people who are going to be laying them all out and pouring over it and trying to figure out the best stuff, but I found that worked best for me was to take 2 colors at random and just make a deck with it. Because here's the thing, this game was in development for, was it like 3 or 4 years?
At least, yeah.
I mean, the designers know what they're doing, and they know what's happening, and they're excited about what's going to happen, which makes me excited about what's going to happen, but that has nothing to do with the first chapter. But I know that it's going to work well together, whatever I do. So I literally just grabbed 2 different colors because the designers are intelligent people, and I just created my own deck. So I didn't have to look at all the different colors and all the different cards. And what's really fun is I'm experimenting with this deck, and Ryan and I are playing, and he's like, I don't know if that deck is going to work for you, but guess what?
I didn't say your deck wasn't going to work. I just thought that my deck was going to work better.
Did it?
It did not.
It did not. And I am new to this. So I would recommend, if all of the cards and all the different things like really, really stress you out, honestly, the designers know what they're doing. Just grab 2 colors at random and work with that. You'll find something that works.
I also think that the organized play, the event play, seems like it's going to be really, really fun.
Yeah.
We played at a local tournament, kind of like a release party kind of a thing. And played with the starter decks more or less that we kind of were able to pump in some of the booster packs with the it comes with, and just play with the kind of the starter decks more or less. And the rewarding system is just really, really friendly, really beneficial.
Yeah.
It feels like they're just like giving out pins, giving out cards. They just want you to be involved. They just want you to play and have a good time. And the people that you're playing with, especially eary on, everyone's just kind of reading their cards and figuring out things. But I think it's just the less. I have a hard time saying this without offending some people who are watching this, but let's be real. There are some card games that have a toxic reputation. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
And this, I think, out of the gate, they're trying really hard to curb that.
Oh,
they want to have friendly competition. They want to have friendly deck ideas. They want to have cards that boost you up as opposed to necessarily tear people down.
Well, they're thinking of family.
Right. This is a game that's going to be much more family friendly, family approachable. And sure enough, I was able to teach our 6-year-old how to play, and we even had our 10-year-old play in that tournament.
Yeah.
And she did great. She didn't win or anything, but she had a fantastic time, met new people, came up with some new deck ideas, that kind of stuff. So it was really fun to see her mind working that way.
So that release party was absolutely adorable and so much fun. And the first game I played, I think his name was Jace. I played against this guy named Jace, and he was so encouraging. It was a cute, adorable, and really funny because I'd be like, okay, I'm going to ink Aladdin, and he's like, okay, good for you.
Yeah, Aladdin, I love Aladdin.
And then I'd be like, okay, and I'm going to I'm gonna lure with Belle, and he's like, oh, that's so nice.
I love Belle, yeah.
And I was telling him because I totally lost to him by a lot, and I was like, it doesn't even bother me that I'm losing to you because you're just so encouraging. And he was saying that he just really likes seeing, like I said in my first point about having things that you're already familiar with. So he likes seeing these characters he was already familiar with. He was just having a lot of fun looking at all these cards, seeing all the cards in play, that regardless of what happened, whether it was me or him, he was just like excited about that. So piggybacking off of what Ryan is saying, I think that they're trying to get an audience or get a group of people that just are going to be a bit more I don't know, PG in their interactions with each other.
Yeah, and sure enough, like, we didn't have to worry about our daughter, like, hearing words that maybe she didn't want to hear. Not that that's not going to happen. I'm sure over time it will. But it's going to be probably less than other card games. So, yeah, I think that this is a game that our family is going to be having a great time with, and we already are. And we're a month into this thing, right? And so this is just kind of a first impressions review, the first month of being able to play a handful of these decks. We've got all the starter decks, and we've been kind of mixing those, cracked open a bunch of booster packs. So we still have more cards to explore, more strategies to explore, and obviously there's more chapters that are coming as well. So if you guys like this Lorcana content, let us know in the comments below. I think from our perspective, we want to keep on making it because it's a great time for the whole family.
Yeah, it is really fun. It's really enjoyable. I, as somebody who has like vehemently opposed playing any type of TCG, I am really enjoying it, which is kind of a shocker for me, but you just never know. Everybody, like Ryan said, if you enjoyed this, let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you can see our videos as they come out.
You guys, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
You guys, thanks so much for watching. This game was provided to us by a publisher in exchange for a fair and honest review.
And if you want to see more stuff, check out over here to see something we think you might like.
And over here, we think that YouTube has picked out a great video for you you're going to love. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.